Hey there everybody and welcome back to another video on my channel, Tech with Marco. Have you ever heard about Terraform? Then this video is that one you should watch right now, and if not, this is also the video you should watch right now. Terraform is a tool which allows you to manage your infrastructure in any cloud environment. That means you're writing code, but that code is describing how you want your infrastructure to look like. So that means you can say, I want a server, I want a storage, I want a database, and this tool Terraform makes it easy for you to deploy your written infrastructure into your environment. And the great benefits of Terraform are that it's cloud agnostic. So that means you could provision any AWS, you could use the Microsoft Cloud Azure or the Google Cloud GCP. And not only you can use clouds, you can also use different providers or different services, for example Cloudflare, to manage anything domain related. And this example is the one I'm showing you later, how you could manage your domain setup in Cloudflare via Terraform. And additionally to that, I'm showing you how to integrate that deployment via Terraform in a so-called GitHub action. So we're using continuous integration or continuous deployment, and we're making use of the GitHub Action feature, and I'll show you how that works. All right, after we clarified what Terraform is, I'm showing you now how you can use it in your environment. So there are three things we need to set up prior to coding. First of all, it is very important to have a GitHub account to make use of GitHub Actions. At second, you need a Cloudflare account to have a registered domain there, which you can manipulate using Terraform. And at third, you need a so-called Terraform backend. A backend is a storage place where Terraform stores its so-called state, and in that state is saved how the infrastructure looks like. And with that state, Terraform is able to manipulate the current state in the cloud, and it's saving what the outcome was. And to come back to the third option, I'm using here the Terraform Cloud backend provided by HashiCorp, the company who develops Terraform. So we're starting with the Terraform backend. In the Terraform Cloud here, you need a workspace, which I called here Cloudflare DNS setup. And when entering here, you see the tab variables, and we have to edit there some variables. I added the Cloudflare account ID and the Cloudflare API key. So we need an API key for Cloudflare so that Terraform is able to manipulate the domain in Cloudflare. So to add these variables, I'm going into Cloudflare now, and under my profile API tokens, we see we have now here some API tokens, and I want to create a new token. And I'd recommend you to use the edit zone DNS template. And if you click use template, it's pre-filled out what you're needing, and you could include some specific zone resources or include all zones. For the simplicity here, I would say you should include all zones. And then you can continue to the summary, and after that it's giving you a summary what you just did there, and then you can create the token. After that, make sure to copy the token. I'm blurring that one here because you shouldn't be able to see that. But after you've copied that, you should go into the Terraform workspace again and add a variable which is called Cloudflare API key. I'm demonstrating it here, so make sure to choose the Terraform variable and then add a key under which the API key is available. I'm naming that one here Cloudflare API key. This is my second one here, just for the demonstration. And then you could enter the value and make sure to mark the sensitive checkbox because it's a secret. And now we can add the variable. A second variable, what you need is the Cloudflare account ID, and you can get the account ID if you have a domain at Cloudflare. Open that domain, and then you get an overview of the domain itself. And if you're scrolling down here and have a look at the right bottom here, there's your account ID. You can click copy, And we're going back into the Terraform Cloud environment, and I'm adding a second variable here. So now you're all good to go with Terraform and Cloudflare. And now we can go into your coding. So now we need to create Terraform files, and the suffix of the Terraform files are .tf for Terraform. And what I already mentioned is we have the Terraform backend, and I named the file backend.tf, and therefore you have to enter the backend configuration. And here I'm opening the Terraform, I'm saying it's the Terraform Cloud, and then you add your organization, what the organization name of your Terraform Cloud account is, and the workspace name you just created at the beginning. A second important option is the provider. And with Terraform providers, you can call any cloud out there, like there are providers for AWS, for Azure, and also one for Cloudflare. So we're opening Terraform here again, and then we add the required providers. And in my case here, this is Cloudflare. The source of Cloudflare is Cloudflare/Cloudflare, and I'm pinning a specific version here. You don't have to do that, but this is usually done when you want to do that in repeating production deployments. I make sure to link the Cloudflare provider documentation because there you can see how everything is configured and what variables you need to add to the provider configuration. So, and the only thing we need is the Cloudflare API key. And to reference now the API key which we created in the first step with the code, I need to create a variable in Terraform. And we're doing that in the file variables.tf, and in Terraform you create variables with only the word variable and then the name of the variable. And as I already said, we have the Cloudflare API key. I do not specify anything here because actually you could also add a default value, and you can also add the type of the variable, so it might be string or integer, but we don't need to do that here because the Terraform Cloud, when deploying the setup, is able to match this variable with the variable in the Terraform Cloud workspace. So this helps you to not store any credentials in your code. The next thing we're declaring is the domain we want to introduce into our Cloudflare account, and therefore I created the domain.tf file. I declared here the resource Cloudflare zone, and I gave that Cloudflare zone name of mine. This could be anything what you want. I'm referencing here my account ID, which I, as the API key, created in the Terraform Cloud workspace here via Terraform variable Cloudflare account ID, and I'm creating the zone of the Cloudflare zone. So that is the name of the zone. And in Cloudflare, this is the domain name. And in my case, the domain name is Marco minus my last name.de. So this is my default domain. And with that resource, I'm creating the resource in Cloudflare. And every domain has its DNS records. So if we want to add any DNS records, I am creating here the records.tf file. And it has resources in there which are Cloudflare records. So every Cloudflare record needs some variables to declare. And first of all, it needs the zone ID. I usually don't know the zone ID, what was created. So I'm referencing on the Cloudflare zone .marco minus my last name _ zone.id. And with that reference, I am using Terraform to pull that zone ID from the just created domain zone. Now I'm giving my record here a name, which is called backup. And yeah, this backup has like a value, which is usually the IP. And after that, I am declaring the type of the record. So this could be an A record or an AAAA record for IPv6, or it could be a TXT record or anything else what you usually using in DNS setups. And yeah, now we want to add another resource of any record here. So I'm creating a resource which is from the type Cloudflare record, and it has the name traffic. If you're wondering now what traffic is, I just made a video about the very nice reverse proxy traffic. So I'm adding here now my DNS setup for that. Now I'm adding my zone ID and I'm referencing the Cloudflare zone.id. I'm giving it a name, and this name is the name of the subdomain I want to have. And in this case, it's just traffic. And the value of that is an IP of a cloud server I just started up. And the type of the record is the A record type. And I do not want this entry to be proxied. Now I'm adding a second entry, and this is plausible, which is running basically on the same server. So it gets the same entry, but with a different name. And now you could just deploy this via the Terraform tool, via your CLE in your local computer. But we want to make that much cooler via GitHub Actions. And to use GitHub Actions, we need to create a .github directory /workflows, and in that workflows folder there is a GitHub action file, and I named my one here Terraform YAML. And this action file is based on a guide which was written by Terraform itself. In this action file we're declaring jobs here, and the job has the name Terraform. In that job Terraform we have different stages here, how a GitHub action works. So first of all, the first step which we need to do is the checkout. And with that action checkout, GitHub is able to pull your code from your GitHub repository into the action runner. The next step is called setup Terraform. This action step is also provided by HashiCorp and is named setup Terraform. And with that step, Terraform is being installed into the GitHub Action Runner. And now we're coming to an important detail here. Because we're using Terraform Cloud, we also need to access the Terraform Cloud workspace from the GitHub Action Runner. And we're doing that via the Terraform Cloud here. So we're going into the user settings and we scroll down to the tokens tab here. And with that token, you're able to access the Terraform Cloud workspaces with your account. Therefore, we need to create an API token. I'm just giving a description here, demonstration. And now we're having an API token created. Now we can copy this token via this button here. And a very important step is now coming. We need to add this token into our GitHub repository. Therefore, we're going into settings and we are going to the tab here, secrets and variables. And we're opening actions and we need to create a repository secret. So in my case, I already created a Terraform API token and referenced that one into the GitHub repository. And I've named that one tf_API_token. And when we're now going back to the Visual Studio Code editor, you can see I'm referencing here the secrets.tf.api token. With that token, the GitHub action is able to access the Terraform Cloud and read the secrets from the Terraform Cloud and is able to store the state file into the Cloud workspace. And now we need to initialize the Terraform, and this is done with the step Terraform init. In Terraform init, Terraform downloads your configured providers, so in my case here Cloudflare, and after that you're able to deploy your just written Terraform files. So, and in the normal case, when you push into your repository, then we need to do a Terraform apply, and I'm giving here a condition if the ref of the push is the main branch. And with the Terraform apply, you say that you want to apply your changes into your infrastructure. And with the auto approve, I'm skipping the user confirmation, which is actually needed when you do this manually. But we're doing that in a pipeline, so we don't have to do that. So let's have a look in the current configuration of my domain in Cloudflare. I just opened here the configuration, which you can access via the web browser. And as you can see, there is no traffic or no plausible record here. These two records I just created in the code, and I am pushing that one now into my code. So after a push, I'm opening the repository on GitHub to check the GitHub action. And now we can see here that this push add to records here, that this commit is triggering a GitHub action pipeline. You can see that with the yellow dot here right next to my name. Currently it's doing the Terraform apply, which I just mentioned in the workflow YAML file. As you can see, the output here, I see Terraform will create 2 records here. The plan is 2 to add, nothing to change and nothing to destroy. And after that, the apply is complete. So now let's check back into the overview side of Cloudflare. I'm refreshing the site now. And as you can see, we have here 2 new A records. The one plausible and traffic. The 2 I just added like a few minutes ago. Another really cool feature is what you can do with GitHub Actions is that you could preview your changes without committing it first. So that means you could write any code and you don't have to apply it to see what is changing. You could just create a pull request in GitHub and see what this pull request would look like in your infrastructure. For that we need 2 different GitHub Actions steps, and these are the 2 action extra steps you need. You need the Terraform plan, and I gave that plan an ID, which is called plan. And I also gave a conditional statement with it. You can reference on the GitHub event name, and if the GitHub event name is a pull request, then I can run Terraform plan. And Terraform plan is just checking how the infrastructure looks like currently, and it gives you a plan what the run is going to change. And to preview that one automatically in the pull requests, I'm having here the step update pull request. So this also has the conditional, it's only running when it's a pull request. And I'm introducing here a new environment variable, which is called plan. And the plan should now contains the steps plan, which I just referenced up here with the ID, and the standard output, and the standard output is the plan. And with the GitHub token, I am able to update pull requests in my GitHub repository. And blah blah. Here I'm just giving a bit of context here. And the summary of the show plan is process.env.plan, which I just created up here. And this plan contains the actual plan what should be changed. And to demonstrate how that looks like, I am deleting these 2 records, but now I am creating a branch. Git checkout -b, and the branch name is delete 2 records. And now I have a new branch here. I'm adding the records file again to the new created branch, and I'm giving that one a commit. Message delete 2 records, and I'm pushing that into my remote origin. After that, I can open my GitHub repository again, and GitHub is now proposing me to create a pull request out of the just created branch, and I'm just doing that here. Delete 2 records, create pull request, and now this pull request triggered a GitHub action again, but it's not applying anything, it's only planning. And this plan will be updated into the pull request here. We can see a new comment here by the GitHub Actions bot, but now I want to see what could change in my infrastructure, and therefore I have to click the show plan, and there we can see Terraform will perform the following actions, and it's deleting the resource Cloudflare record from plausible and traffic. So that means, these 2 just created records I did like a few minutes ago, they will be vanished. And if I want to do that, I can just merge my pull request. I'm just confirming the merge, and with that, a new action will be triggered again to delete the 2 records here. Sorry, I just confused some things up, but to give it a go again, after I've merged the pull request into my GitHub repository from the branch, I can see that the merging of the pull request just deleted these 2 records again, because the pipeline started again. And there we can see at the Terraform apply step, the Cloudflare record plausible was destroyed successfully, and also the traffic record. But this was the whole Terraform, GitHub Actions and Cloudflare magic. I wanted to demonstrate you. I love to use Terraform as my infrastructure management tool, and you could let me know in the comments if you're already using Terraform and for what you're using that, and if not, you should definitely check it out. I'd be more than happy if you give that video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Yeah, there are lots of more things coming in the future, and I'll be happy to show you lots of different technologies. And yeah, see you in the next video. Bye bye.